Well, speaking of that, let's dig into it because the NBA is a weird place, especially how they decided to handle this particular season. Granted, COVID has kind of forced their hand in terms of how the scheduling of the season would normally go, but there's a lot of gripes and concerns regarding the condensed schedule and a potential correlation with all the injuries that have been going on as of late. So, um, I guess my question to you is, for one, how do you feel about the condensed schedule? And two, do you think there's any relationship between the amount of injuries we're seeing or the nature of the injuries that we're seeing and the fact that they didn't get the typical amount of rest in the off season that they would in a normal season? What do you think, Chris?
There has to be a correlation. It only makes sense, um, because when you look at the schedule, these guys are legitimately playing every other day. And yes, you may get a spell when you do get 2 days off in a row, but then that follows and precedes itself with 3 games in 4 nights right after that 2 day break. You know what I'm saying? So like it's clear that they're getting worked. They're definitely getting worked, but at the same time, it's like how much can I sympathize with the players? Because I would first have to have the discussion on how much people wanted to sacrifice rest or the perceived rest for a paycheck. Because it's no secret. These guys get paid per game. So how much of them wanted the maximum amount of games versus how much of them wanted, say, a 60 game season, like how we had back in the lockout when we started in December. Like we started basically the same amount of time. The only difference is in this instance, they added like 14 games on top of that, fam. So, but again, how much people wanted that versus how much people would rather the rest. I would have to have that question before I place any type of judgment on the commissioner. But it's no secret, bro. We've seen ACL tears like mad, fam. Like mad. People are hobbling all around the league. Every time a man goes down, my heart drops because I'm like, oh no, fam. Like the TikTok meme, fam. I'm like, I can't have it. But I just hope people make it to the playoffs and it doesn't contaminate the playoffs to a certain degree because you already lost Jamal Murray and we know how important he is in playoff time for that Denver team. So I just hope nothing else happens until then.
I
What do you think,
think
Kev?
I think I don't know. It's tough because I'm not a man that likes to evaluate decisions based on the outcome. I think proper decision making comes from the information that you had at the time, right? So let's go back to November. You knew you had to get as many games as possible to please the owners, also to please the players who want to get paid, as Chris said. You also have a limited amount of time because at some point, the idea is you're going to get back to the regular scheduling where the league starts in October, November, right? So what do? You start early. You get as many games in as possible. They cut the schedule by 10 games. What you had some people complaining about the start time. Mans wanted to start after MLK Day, which is about the second week of January instead of around Christmas. I never really heard a difference in the games that were going to be played. So again, what do you want? This is going to happen when players are used to playing more than normal, and you can't get around it. Like it's unfortunate, and you can only hope that it slows down or it gets better. Or at this point, teams are going to have to rest players because they can't afford to. The worst thing that could happen is if you're a team like the Jazz, which we saw with Donovan Mitchell, having your best season, right, where you're looking like you could be a contender, and you just go down. An important piece just goes missing, and now everything you worked for 72 games in the span of 6 months is gone down the drain. So I think we're going to see a lot of rest going forward, and man, just got to hope and pray we make it there still because we lost Donovan Mitchell, Braun's been hurt, AD's been hurt. Like it's the list is starting to pile up. Jamal Murray's gone. We lost James Harden, KD for an extended period of time with hamstring. I'm just seeing bare hamstring all around, hamstring all around, and that's clearly fatigue. Like that's the difference between, um, those muscle injuries. So I don't know. It's unfortunate, but again, like this was foreseeable. Like this was the the likely outcome, and I think Adam Silver was okay with that.
I think for me, the one thing is like I just didn't know what the alternative would have been, right? Like, okay, we understand that like for one, the 82 game schedule has been criticized for the past couple years anyway. They wanted to reduce that to
But they want the
I
same
don't know
amount of
to
pay.
what number. Yeah, but they wanted the same amount of pay, and it just doesn't work like that. Like it's not. It just doesn't make sense from an economic standpoint, or financial standpoint. Okay, granted, given the circumstances, they shortened the season to 72 games, and players want to say, "Oh, I didn't get enough notice to prep myself accordingly, and we started a little earlier than expected." But what were you expecting, right? Like, I just don't understand how a player whose job is to be an athlete is going to come and say that 2 weeks is going to make the difference between you being ready and not ready. To me, that just doesn't sound logical, right? Like it's either you're ready or you're not ready, right? Point blank, period. Secondly, as it relates to the injuries, I do think there's a strong correlation or relationship between the two because, again, we're dealing with a lot of basketball in a short amount of time. However, I do think some of these teams are being cautious, right? Like I think Braun could have came back. I think AD could have came back. I think Kevin Durant could have
Nah.
came back, right? I definitely think they could have came back earlier than what they're slated to come back or their return date would have been. But again, the team is being overly cautious because it is a lot of basketball in a short period of time, right? Guys like Donovan Mitchell, even him, MRIs came back clean. I think he's missing more games just to be cautious. I don't think that these teams are necessarily thinking that, oh, actually, no, maybe they are thinking that, I don't want to risk a major injury by sending this guy back out too early. But again, I do think they are holding players out because they want to preserve them for the playoffs, right? And we're getting to that point in the season where if it was a regular season, people would have been doing that anyway. That's how I see it.
I don't know still because at the end of the day, bro, it's easy to say that Mans would have played, but we already know the like. I don't feel like Mans would have played. I don't feel that because even guys like Kevin Durant, like we know he is good. He's going to be overly cautious.
Mm-hmm.
Period. Like he's coming off of the Achilles, so he has to be overly cautious. A sprained ankle, Donovan Mitchell. Yes, the MRI came back clean, but it's still a sprained ankle. No, like I saw his ankle
They
twist. Like I
they
saw
said there
it.
was no structural damage. I don't know if that means that it was clean still. I don't like. I genuinely don't know if that
Yeah,
means
so
it was
maybe it wasn't as bad or as detrimental as he was leading on because that nigga was on the floor moving like he tore his Achilles, no cap.
We're in the
But
moment. You have
so
to give every
maybe
man, any man a saving grace. An injury's an injury.
listen, listen. Jamal Murray actually tore his ACL and he went
But
out
yo, the pain is different,
saying
bro.
"fuck
Like
the chair." This guy is going out moving like he needs a whole
Okay, and
the
stretcher,
pain is
fam.
KD tore his
different, bro.
Achilles and looked like he got kicked.
The pain is different, fam. Like you can't compare the two. Still, an injury that has you out for a year might not hurt as much as one that has you out for 2 months at that time when it happens. We see man's hoop on the torn Achilles. We see man's hoop on a sprained ankle. Like you can't really compare the two like that. It's not fair.
I hear you still, but I don't know. He was he was moving detrimental on the ground still. But in any event, man, when it comes down to the injuries, like you're gonna have them, but at the same point, it's like how much can you curtail? For me, I'm just saying when it comes to like next season and they go back or they have the discussion, because I'm sure they're gonna have the discussion on whether or not to go back to 82 games. And when I'm looking at man say, okay, but the money, say the league is making more because a new TV deal is about to hit in, right? So if the TV deal money raises the pot, wouldn't they then be able to then give up the 82 games and still get the money
So the reality of this,
by playing 72 with the new TV
no,
deal?
because the reality of the situation is this: when you have the collective bargaining agreement between two, they negotiate the splits, right? So yes, the new TV money is coming in, but again, they still have a base agreement that has to be honored. When they renegotiate the CBA, then they can kind of barter and say, okay, we want to reduce schedule, but then it'd be in the best interest of the owners to say, okay, yeah, if you want to reduce schedule, then understand that certain things are going to have to get cut. Your salaries might get cut by a certain percentage. It might not be 10%. It might be 4, 3, 2, whatever the percentage is, but you're going to have to take some losses. And again, that's why I keep saying these players love to vocalize their concerns, but I don't think they understand financially what that means, right? Like the league has been able to grow so far because of things like these. We've kept 82 games. We keep the TV deals. We're entertaining, right? There's other leagues out there that struggle, right, with these things. So the fact that the NBA is in a position where they are right now, I think players need to sit down and really reflect and understand what they're wanting for and what they're asking for because it could come back to bite them when the new CBA gets negotiated.
Fam, that sounds good from a corporate perspective, but at the same time, I'm sure if you ask the players, they're gonna say that we are big because we are who we are,
But
fam.
yo,
At the end of the
that's the
day,
thing that Maz don't understand. The players play the corporate side too. Like Maz move like these guys are just players.
yeah, but
Individually they don't, but as a collective, as an NBA
as a
PA,
collective,
they
yeah.
do play that side. So it's not, you can't just say as a player we are who we are. Nah, you're a product. Sad as it is, you are a product. Collectively, you are a product. So you have to manage that, and you have to negotiate. Still, like there's no cuts without and only one man takes a hit, bro. Life doesn't work that way. And the owners, imagine you're an owner and you're the one taking the L. Are you crazy?
But are they real? But that's what I'm saying. Like, are they taking the L though? Like, or
AL,
yes, they're taking
AL
an
is what I'm
L, but
saying.
like, are
If this
or like any
right,
type
that's
of
what I'm
L?
saying. Like if I'm the
Right.
owner, I'll share the L's, but in no way am I burdening the L. What type of sense does that make? I own this team.
All right.
No, it makes sense. It makes perfect sense. Like I'm telling you, it's not. It's going to be a hard decision to. It's going to be a hard discussion to have when these guys are talking about. I want to make 45, 50, 60 million dollar contracts guaranteed, and you're not willing to sacrifice anything. It just doesn't make sense because guys in football are begging for guaranteed contracts. The WNBA is begging
That's
to not get a
completely
second
different
job
though.
in the
Like
summer.
you can't even compare the other
But
sports
the thing
though.
about
Like
it,
you
the
can't.
reality is,
There's no way to
but
compare the
Chris,
other
the reality
sports.
is the NFL makes way more money than the NBA, and granted, the rosters are larger. If they really wanted to, they could increase the amount of contracts that are guaranteed, but they don't. They don't. Football, you can make a Pro Bowl 1 year and they'll
Yeah,
cut you the
because
next year to
that's
save a dollar.
that's fam, that's the play. That's the player's fault. The players
Okay,
aren't
and that's what I'm
serious.
saying. That's why
Nah,
we
I
need
don't
to
think.
understand that as players, we have to be very understanding of where you are because there's people doing a lot worse than you.
Nah, it doesn't
Nah,
matter
the
though. That
players
doesn't
aren't
matter
serious,
still.
fam.
A next man's situation in the next league is irrelevant. But what I will say in terms of the NFL, I don't think it's the players' fault. I think it's literally just the structure of the league. The shield is more important than any individual player. So
Yeah, but that's the player's
no, they're
fault.
just they wear a helmet. What are the players supposed to do? What are the players supposed to do?
The players just went to the table to negotiate another collective bargaining agreement, and they leave shit in like the franchise tag. They leave shit in like you're able to cut me after one
But
year, bro.
again,
They that
but yo,
they're doing
but you
that,
say it as if they can just say like they're not trying. Why would I?
fam. In baseball, when baseball wants to get shit done, those niggas ain't playing. Like
Again,
the baseball mans will strike and
but those
not
men have
play.
guaranteed funds.
Period.
Exactly.
Fam, but you gotta sacrifice something if you're
Yeah, but
serious.
yo, that's easy to say when it's the Mills still. Like that's easy to say.
Ah, but so how serious are you?
Nah,
That's
nah,
what I'm
nah.
saying.
Yo,
It's
I
their
just think it's a
fault, fam. They're
structure
not
still, because
serious
yo, the
enough.
NFL doesn't need any single one player. You ever heard the NFL say what's gonna happen when Tom Brady retires? As the NBA says what happens when Braun retires, or NBA fans? We genuinely don't know what this league
Yeah,
looks like.
that's the makeup of the teams. That's the makeup of
That's
the
what I'm
league
saying, and
still.
that
Yeah.
structure that's set up by the NFL. That's the difference. You do not need any single man. Man's not even identifiable. He wears a helmet. That's a
True.
no name.